we are having this ceremony amidst the mourning for the longest serving Commander-in-Chief of the Armed Forces, Elizabeth II, Queen of Ceylon and Commander-in-Chief of Ceylon's Armed Forces. So when she gave up that position only, that we found thereafter the unfortunate internal conflicts which led to the expansion and development of our armed forces. I am happy to be with you here today. You are the first batch to graduate after then President Gotabaya Rajapaksa declared open this institute. The Commandant told me in the next batch we'll have civilians from the government service, and thereafter there will also be foreign students. I would like to tell the Commandant, if you are going to have foreign students, why don't you get foreign lecturers also? Can be done on Zoom or otherwise, which certainly add to the quality of instructions given here. But it's all of you who have passed out in the first batch who will establish the standards. Your display, your commitment to your work will establish how high the standards of this institution. That is up to you. I won't take too much to say of this, except to remind you of a line from my old school song. They have retained thy fame inviolate. That's what we would expect all of you who graduated now and later on to do. When the National Defence College was mooted and they were looking at a site, I am the person who suggested this building, known as Mumtaz Mahal, but it was actually the residence of Admiral Geoffrey Layton, Commander-in-Chief Ceylon. He came here in 1942, and the stabilization of British and the Allied power in the Indian Ocean was done during his time. Admiral Lord Louis Mountbatten came only in 1944. By that time, the task was over. What was his role? What did he do? Because Prime Minister Winston Churchill called the Easter Raid and the fact that we retained it, this country, the most momentous period of the war. There are references to this attack and to the role of Sri Lanka, Ceylon in 1942, amongst others, in the diaries of Lord Allenbrook and some of the other commanders of the time. So it's acknowledged that we did play a role. And what is the role that Admiral Layton spoke? That has never been assessed. Many of them say that he played an important role, while there are few who are critics. So looking back, maybe we can now assess what is the role he played when Sri Lanka had a strategic or the most strategic position in the Indian Ocean. Now that the college has started here in the same premises, our importance has not depreciated. If at all, it has appreciated. The geopolitics of the Indian Ocean has unfortunately made us the punching bag for Hambantota. Actually, there are about 17 ports that are operated by the Chinese in the Indian Ocean, different companies. There are some more ports that are operated by Dubai World Ports. Now, all the ports are commercial ports. So is Hambantota. It is not a military port. If there is security significance, it is in the port of Darwin in Australia, where you have, as they say, the Chinese ports are operating side by side with the areas with the Australian and the US forces used for training. We don't have that. We don't have anyone to come and train here. But we do have our Southern Command of the Navy, we have a divisional headquarters of the Army, and we have a detachment of the Air Force. But none of them are involved. They only ensure that this is a commercial port and no less. So though we are a commercial port, it shows our strategic importance that many people sort of come to conclusions which are unwarranted. And I hope the next agreement we come with with China will not cause such speculation. It is only about debt reduction for Sri Lanka. But I think it gives me an occasion also to speak to you about what is our position in the Indian Ocean. Firstly, there is an Indo-Pacific. There are many definitions. Indo-Pacifics that end up in the western coast of India, Indo-Pacifics that go further on. Far as Sri Lanka is concerned, we accept the definition of ASEAN, that these are two separate oceans joined together. When Prime Minister Abe addressed the Lok Sabha, he referred to the confluence of two oceans. So therefore, that is necessary. And that is necessary for us because the security situation here is different from that of the Pacific. Pacific has always gone around that of the hub and spoke system. And there's tension, as we know today, in the Taiwan Straits and other parts. The Indian Ocean is different. First and foremost, in the region, the biggest tension does not come from the sea. It comes from the Himalayas, where three nuclear powers face each other. Secondly, it comes from the Horn of Africa and the Red Sea, where bases are being established and militarization is going on. In fact, all those who are militarizing the Horn of Africa point to us who have not militarized anything. And they say we are the ones who are doing it. So this is the irony of life and the irony of being a small nation. Nevertheless, we do not want the tension in the Pacific to flow over here. It's not only us. ASEAN doesn't want it. They don't want to come beyond the South China Sea. So we are with ASEAN on that. This has become one group for two reasons. One is the Belt and Road Initiative. The other is the Quad. But for us, while we don't participate in military alliances, we certainly do not want the problems of the Pacific coming in to the Indian Ocean. So let us look at how we can maintain our stability. Because we do this because we want the Indian Ocean to be stable and to be open to all. That's why we've asked for a code of conduct, the Indian Ocean, and see the freedom of navigation to apply, and the code of conduct, and also the freedom of undersea cables. That is important for commerce to carry on. We have to remember bulk of the petroleum supply, energy supply to the world goes through the Indian Ocean. A large amount of shipping goes through the Indian Ocean. We don't want this to be an area of conflict, an area of war. And this is one of the reasons that worry me, because I am in total agreement with the Prime Minister of Singapore and the Deputy Prime Minister, who refer to the fact that you can have unwarranted war, very well described by Barbara Tuchman in her book, The Guns of August, how Europe stumbled into war, lost their empires, and finally after World War II led to the rise of Asia. So it's a very, very interesting book that you all should read. We don't want that. We want there to be peace and harmony. Thirdly, we don't want to see big power rivalry in the ocean, because that big power rivalry gets reflected everywhere. We are not against, I don't say that Indian Ocean should be locked out for others. In 1977, we said that Indian Ocean Peace Zone did not prevent the American fleet from being present there. I, as the Deputy Minister of Foreign Affairs, had to break the news and also to face the criticism that came from our area. But they can be here. Subsequently, we have seen the Japanese Maritime Defense Forces here. Certainly, we are not against it. We like to see them here. And then you have seen the People's Liberation Army Navy here. It's not only there. Many of the European navies are now coming in here. So these are developments. okay, if the navies want to come, we have no problem. They helped in the anti-piracy operations. But we don't want a level of rivalry which will affect the security and the peace of our area. Sri Lanka will not take part in any big power rivalry. That we had decided from the time of Right Honorable D.S. Senanayake. It was shown in the Colombo Powers Conference, in the non-aligned conferences, whatever it be, that we will not join any big power or take sides. We will stay out of it, and that's why we want to ensure that the big powers and the rivalry doesn't lead to, certainly lead to conflict in the Indian Ocean. That's one thing we can't afford. We are faced with so many problems. Non-military. Look at the question today we are facing, many of our countries, of the shortage of food, of economic development, of global climate change. Those are more than sufficient for us to focus on. We don't want our attention taken away by others. Then, when it comes to the security of Sri Lanka, we are of the view that in looking after the security of Sri Lanka, that we must also ensure that nothing adverse happens to the security of India. That we have been committed to, and we will go ahead with it. There will be no movement out of it, and certainly our security, that's why we work with India on the Colombo Conclave, on the trilateral security arrangements, and many other fields, especially outside the military field of piracy, of human trafficking, of drugs. All those are useful one area in which we cooperate with India and the other island states. Then we also value our friendship with Maldives. Two small islands, and we know how important Maldives is. We all have to ensure that the 8th degree channel and the 9th degree channel are not blocked. One is on the boundary with India, one is within Maldives. What can we do? We can only help to train and strengthen members of the armed forces. I have asked the Secretary of Defense and the Chief of Defense Staff that we should, in fact, increase the amount of people from Maldives that are being trained here. So this is our policy, and we will operate in this context. Then the next part of it, what do we do? I think we have to now look at the defense and security of Sri Lanka. That's why we want to have Defense 2030 report. Firstly is look at the whole region, and that's a study not only by the Defense Ministry, by the Foreign Ministry, by the Finance Ministry, looking at the economic trade, there are very little trade integration, by the Environment Ministry, and the new Climate Change Office, Secretariat I will have within the President's Office to get together and with other concerned ministries and departments, look at the situation, security situation in the Indian Ocean. Then there is a question of what our security forces should be. What are the challenges we are going to face? We are not going to get involved in a war. But what are the challenges we face? And what are we going to do about it? That we have to decide. Because now we have to move out of the phase we were in. We had to fight a war. We have now concluded the war victoriously. Now we have to bring peace, which we are doing, and there will be a final settlement, I hope, in the next few months with the northern and the Tamil people. I have been talking with the Tamil parliamentarians. But we have to think of the future. Even terrorism today is not the terrorism we faced. It's of different nature. I hope we won't have it. But we must take all precautions against it. The other one is that other terrorists can use Sri Lanka to attack third parties. Now that danger is there. So that is one. Secondly is within the security of Sri Lanka and the defense of Sri Lanka. What is the role of the army? What is the role of the navy? What is the role of the Air Force? What are the weaponry needs? We have to remember that we have a budget. Unfortunately, I happen to be both defense minister and finance minister. It's, I think, a conflict of interest. But nevertheless, we have to get along with it. Then you look at the what is warfare going to be? We have to identify. I was reading the Integrated Defense Review, UK, which Minister Ben Wallace introduced last year in Parliament. Very interesting, the second chapter. They had what is called the future battlefield. Now, that is for UK. What is the future battlefield for us? What is our role in that battlefield? What are we going to do? How are we going to restructure armed forces? What about the cyberspace? Are the existing armed forces going to do it, or are you going to have a separate force? So there are so many issues. Even the space, as we know, has become a scene of conflict. So how do we, what is our role, and what are the armed forces, and what we are going to do? It's within our budgets, which also means we have a very high expenditure on defense. So we have to gradually reduce it as a percentage of the GDP. But we should all be committed to a fast-growing economy. If we can go instead of 5% to 7 or 8%, then as the economy grows, your share will grow. What is the prescribed amount will grow. So we all have a hand in ensuring a speedy development and a fast rate of growth in this country for the next decade or two. That will then give you the financial space. Then the most important issue, climate change, the environment. Now, what is the role we have to play in the armed forces? It's going to be important. And of course, we have the non-state actors in the area. So we have got to work with them. We will see new armed forces coming in. I could see some of the Gulf countries, especially coming out and having their armed forces. The UAE, with its access on the Yemen coast, will certainly play an important role on the Western Indian Ocean. There will be others. So let's look at the new situation, how the armed forces will develop, and how we ensure our security and ensure there is absence of tension and combat in the area. That's all that we can do. We are by ourselves can't do, so we are talking with other countries which have a similar view. So this is what our future would be, and I've asked the Secretary of Defense and some of the others to look at the groundwork for Defense 2030, and many of you in the armed forces and outside could make your contribution, because this is really the future of our country. If you don't have a good defense system, your future is gone. The world situation and the geopolitics will get worse, it won't get better. So let us get ready. There are so many conflicting power plays between China and the West, between Asia and the West, the new Arab powers that are coming in, the regional powers, the sub-regional powers. And what is the role of Indonesia, which really controls the sea between Indian Ocean and the Pacific Ocean. So these are many issues that we will have to focus on, and we have to get ready for it. This Defense College then is producing the human resources who would play a leading role in looking at our defense structure. And I would ask all of you to put on your thinking caps and make a contribution, because we have to now think of the defense of Sri Lanka and the role of armed forces in 2030 and beyond.